Hi everyone, my name is Rob Schell and I help lead our go-to-market team here at Zenput. And for today's session, I really wanted to give everyone a better understanding of exactly how Zenput works and how restaurant operators are using our platform to drive better agility into their operations and gain better visibility around everything that needs to happen in their restaurants on a day-to-day basis. So before we get started, I thought it'd be helpful to take everyone through a brief overview of exactly what Zenput does and the key areas that we help, and then we'll launch into an actual demo and day in the life of restaurant operators. So to get started, Zenput is a operations execution platform. So what that means is we really take a holistic approach to helping all different types of operators across their restaurants and their locations to manage all of the critical work that maintains a great guest customer experience, as well as maintain critical food safety protocols. So the way that we actually do that is by supporting multiple teams in your organization. So it takes a village to maintain operational excellence, and we understand that it's equally important to have your restaurant teams getting all of the critical work that they need to get done, as well as your field teams feel supported in their auditing and corrective action process. And then of course, for all of those individuals at the home office, it's really important to make it very easy to roll out standard operating procedures, as well as gain critical insights around all of the work that's happening in their restaurants so they can identify areas of opportunity to improve. So the way that we do that is really by supporting each one of those categories of employees in a couple of key different ways. So as you'll see in today's demo, we'll spend some time walking through what the day in the life of a restaurant team member looks like leveraging Zenput. The core pieces that we'll focus on here is managing all of the critical SOPs they need to get done throughout the day, whether that's an opening, closing checklist, things like HACCP logs and food safety checks, and even in today's world, a bunch of additional procedures that may be COVID related, and how they're managing that in an environment where they may be typically using pen and paper or a whole new suite of tools. The second component that we'll walk through is more from the field perspective. So how do we support your field team members, whether they be district managers, franchise business consultants, to get all of the work that they need to get done, audits, store visits, manage the corrective action process and make sure that critical issues are being identified and taken care of, and that of course their teams are staying on track with everything they need to get done. Lastly, the view that we'll show you is from the home office perspective, where we want to make it really easy for organizations to roll out, whether it be brand new procedures, make updates to existing procedures, and of course alert all of their teams around changes or key updates that need to happen, and track things like compliance and overall performance to make sure that we're operating as effectively as we should be. So the first view that I want to walk you all through is from a store level perspective. So before we kind of dive in, it's important to note there's really two core components to the Zenput application. So the first component is a mobile app that typically is where all of your restaurant teams and field team members are going to go to actually understand what work do I need to get done, actually execute on that work, and then of course receive critical communication from the home office and back up the chain as well. So this is where we'll spend the vast majority of time for the store management view, as this is where they spend all of their day in the application. So the first thing that you'll see when logging in as a store in Zenput is what we call our dashboard view. And the dashboard view is really meant to give store operators a high-level understanding of what work is out there that I need to get done, and then of course some really helpful analytics that we'll walk through to make sure that they're best spending their time coaching and training maybe newer employees or their shift leads. So the first thing that I see when I get logged in here very clearly at the top is the work that I need to get assigned to today. We know that it can be a really, really hectic environment in the restaurant, especially during today's days where they may be operating with less staff than they've ever had before. And so one of the big challenges that we hear from restaurant managers is there's not enough time in the day to get everything done. With crowds packing in and short hands on staff, oftentimes checklists can get missed. So we want to make it really easy to not only prioritize their day, but also remind them of critical events that need to happen. So throughout the day, as a GM, as a shift lead, I'm actually going to get notifications through the Zenput app to alert me when critical work needs to get done. As you can see here, today I have 2 tasks that I need to get done: an opening checklist, a daily temperature log, and of course it will help me kind of rank and file those based on due dates. So if something's later done in the week, maybe something like a cleaning checklist that's done every Friday or every Saturday, those will be prioritized into this week, and further events maybe for a promotional rollout in the future. From the home view of the mobile application, we're going to make it very, very simple for your GM or your shift leads to understand exactly what work needs to get done and when. So by clicking into my tasks, I make it really easy to prioritize my day. I can see what tasks are done or need to get done and the time frames of which those are assigned, so I can help prioritize things that may be need to get done earlier in the day. And I'm also going to receive those push notifications to help remind me when things are due. So as I'm going through my day, again, these checklists are typically going to be the same SOPs and procedures your restaurant teams are already used to, but we really want to focus on making them easier to get done as well as prioritization of the day. So one of the key ways that we do that is by leveraging our digital platform and forms to collect the information as your team members are actually walking around the restaurant getting the work done. A great example of this is a lot of the time savings we see on temperature checks or HACCP logs. As I'm going down the line, oftentimes there's a lot of errors with either issues with spelling or recording temperatures wrong, and generally it's just a time-consuming process. So a lot of customers may start to leverage Bluetooth-enabled thermometers and other IoT devices like temperature sensors to make this data collection not only more accurate, but also a lot faster as I'm getting things done. So if I can walk down the line with Zenput and my Bluetooth thermometer and start to automatically have temperatures log in for my taco meat as I temp it, probe things like chicken and other vegetables, that saves me a lot of time, and typically most of our customers may be saving 10 to 20 minutes a shift just in leveraging the digital versions of the forms they're already doing today. Now, one of the key things as well, especially when you're talking about food safety items, is being able to identify and react as there may be critical issues that may be present in the restaurant. So as you're going through a HACCP log and you maybe identify that chicken is potentially undercooked, right? The system will actually then start to bring up an alert for that team member. This chicken is undercooked, it may ask for some sort of corrective action, and we can also automate even alerts to maybe above restaurant leadership to let them know, hey, there's undercooked food at this particular location, we need to discard it or retemp and reheat. So it makes it very, very simple for your team members to go throughout their day, completing the work that they need to get done while saving time and making sure that the quality of the work is very high. As I go back into my day-to-day items, of course, getting work done is a critical function that I need to always stay on top of each and every shift. But we want to also take the advantage of better tracking this information to provide not only better record keeping. It's really hard for a lot of folks to keep track of things like pen and paper in the back office. But we also want to use that data to enable GMs to better coach and train their teams. So as I start to go through my checklists and I'm completing these things day in and day out, we're going to start to collect a lot of key metrics that are shown on the dashboard view. Things like overall completion rates help me understand maybe we have an issue with our first shift that we're only completing information at a subpar rate, where maybe other shifts I see that we have really strong trends. Maybe we're sitting at 100% completion. So I can start to identify potential personnel issues. I can start to better understand maybe what's happening in first shift that's causing us to miss some of these things, so we can rectify that. And so we show a lot of really good quantitative metrics to help GMs better track that. Additionally, we want to also focus on the quality of the work that's getting done as well. And one way that we do that is by highlighting critical things like maybe a brand standards audit that's done at your restaurant once a quarter or once a month, and start to identify maybe top issues that you're experiencing at your restaurant on that brand standards audit or on that particular checklist. So as a GM, I can start to see really strong trends that over the past 4 weeks, when we're doing our self-assessments or our auditors are coming in, we've had issues with outside cleanliness 73% of the time. And so now I can start to understand, where do I need to spend my time coaching and training my employees? All of this information is really, really hard for most GMs to get. However, it can be one of the most helpful things as they're thinking through, what can I do to better coach and train my teams and elevate our execution overall? So by identifying some of these more qualitative metrics, we want to make it really, really easy for GMs to better understand maybe where their areas of opportunity are for improvement. I can better coach and train my teams if I understand maybe where our common issues are, so we can start to elevate our execution overall as a team. Now, in terms of the record keeping aspects, obviously, especially for things like our brand standards or things that we may be required to do, things like HACCP logs, we need to make sure that we're keeping a great track record of all of the work that's getting done. And this can be really difficult in a lot of environments as mounds of paper and paper stack up in the back office. So we also want to make this very, very simple for your teams to track on a day by day, month by month, quarter by quarter basis. So even in addition to some of the higher level metrics in terms of overall completion rates, we want to show this calendar style view in the recurring projects to give a GM a really easy way to scroll through past performance and start to see maybe where there's gaps. So as I'm identifying maybe that there was an issue when I was on vacation on September 4th and the morning of the 5th, I can see that work wasn't completed on that day, so I can take appropriate action there. This is typically where a lot of GMs have to spend a lot of time sifting through pen and paper to understand what's getting done. And we want to make it very, very easy to track both the qualitative metrics as well as just was work getting done to the level that we need it to ensure a great customer experience. Now, there are a lot of the work that's being done in the restaurants are typically these tasks that are assigned out on a day-by-day basis. Your tip logs, your HACCP checks, your manager travel pass, your drive-through audits, all of the key things that may be in your operations book or food safety books that you leverage in the restaurants. However, another key piece of the Zenput platform is helping GMs and restaurant teams with the speed of information that it takes to escalate potential issues or items that may be needed for their teams. In most environments, we speak to a lot of operators where they manage a lot of escalation policies via text messages, email threads, phone calls, faxing even. And so one of the key things that we can do to help is make that a lot easier for the GMs and speed up the speed that it takes to actually get that information from a home office or a field perspective. So in the event that there was some sort of incident or escalation that I needed to take, rather than having to go to the back office, I can actually go to the same place that I go for all of my checklists and day-to-day items and do things like record an incident, including taking photos, capturing numbers or names of particular employees or witnesses that were there for a customer slip and fall or a customer complaint, and then have the system automatically escalate this information up the chain. So your DMs, your HR team, your ownership teams are all in the know immediately when something happens versus maybe 3-4 days, if not weeks after that event happened. So you're able to understand, get visibility around these issues and take action much faster. It's also way easier on the GMs if I can complete that work and Zenput takes care of the rest of it versus having to manage all of that pen and paper at the restaurant location itself. So between managing all of the tasks, alerting when things are due, giving ways to manage and communicate up the chain with these incidents, a lot of this work goes into making the lives of your GMs, your shift leads, your team members a lot easier. They have a lot on their plate and it's a really hectic environment. And a lot of this is meant to just save time and make it much easier to get the things done that they need to get done. Great, so as we mentioned, Zenput is not just there to support your restaurant team members. We also want to help all of the field staff that goes out to restaurants on a day-by-day, weekly basis to help support those teams. So what I'll show you and walk you through next is a different mobile app view, which is specifically designed for your field teams, be it a district manager, a regional manager, or even a franchise business consultant. So as a DM, as I'm pulling up to a restaurant that I may have to do a visit for today, I'm actually able to see a lot of the same information that we displayed for your GMs. Typically, I may spend the first 40 minutes of my visit in the back office, not just catching up with the GM and running through sales numbers, but a lot of that visit may be, rummaging through all of the pen and paper logs to make sure that we're still on track doing the things that we need to get done. So the ability for me to do that prior to my visit by opening up this store location, even if I'm not there that day, going through the recurring view just like your GMs do on a day-by-day basis, understanding over the last 30 days since my last visit, how have we been doing, what days did we miss, how many times did we miss these critical procedures, saves me a ton of time on my actual visit that I'm going to go do, and I can spend that time interacting with guests, better coaching and training with my GM, and focusing on maybe areas of opportunity for growth. As it comes time to actually do the audit or store visit, whatever the case may be, similarly to the GMs, we want to really focus on making this process incredibly easy, but also save them time as they're going through these audits. So similar, we will also digitize the same procedures that they're used to. As I'm going through, I'm answering a lot of the same questions and standards that you guys already have in place today, except we'll leverage the opportunity to collect better information around what we're actually seeing in the field. And one way a lot of restaurant brands will do that is by leveraging things like photos or additional comments throughout an audit. For example, if I start to see that there's an issue with bathroom cleanliness, not only will Zenput highlight historical performance for this particular question of the audit, I can see if this is a recurring issue or maybe a one-off issue, but I'm able to easily take images of any particular issue that I may identify at the store location and use this as a great coaching tool to actually specifically point out maybe a problem area that I want my GM to go fix. This is a common breakdown in communication between field team members and restaurant team members. And so even something as simple as providing photos and sending tasks down to the restaurant to go fix those items can be a huge time saver on both sides and solve problems much, much faster. Now, oftentimes, your organization may be checking a wide variety of things. So you may be checking for brand standards, you may be checking higher level food safety items, and maybe even spot checking some food. Similar to the restaurants, being able to connect things like Bluetooth thermometers, track basically any kind of standard within this audit is very, very helpful as we're really focused on saving your team time as they're going through. Now, it's very, very common, especially on the field auditing side of things, to track overall performance based on some sort of scoring mechanism. So another huge time saver at the field, I know many of you in the field that are watching and joining us today have spent countless hours calculating formulas on spreadsheets and making sure that we're scoring well. And Zenput can also help tremendously in time savings and data entry by calculating a lot of that information automatically based on different weights of the questions and responses that you have. Now, outside the audits, another key piece is just following up generally on communicating with your stores. This is a really common thing for field team members to check in on the work that's getting done. Maybe I go spot check a temperature log that was done yesterday on the 9th, and I see some issues that I want maybe addressed. So unlike maybe traditional environments where we're having separate lines of communication, text, email, maybe even handwritten notes, I can actually have a two-way communication with my GMs directly about the work that's getting done in Zenput. So if I see a particular issue, I'm able to hop in and mention my store manager and start a dialogue here around the work that's actually getting done. This creates not only a great two-way communication in real time, but it also allows you to track all of the communication in one place. The same place we're communicating about the work is the actual place where we go to track these items and actually get them done. So it makes it very, very simple. All of basically everything that I need from an operational perspective is housed right here in the Zenput application. The last view that we'll walk you through is the second component of the platform we mentioned, which is typically aimed at home office and leadership teams. Our web management console is really the place where organizations go to manage their SOPs, actually roll out and assign out critical work and announcements that they need to make teams aware of, and of course run really great insights and reporting around everything that's happening so they understand maybe where some deficiencies are or where they're doing really, really well, and so they can maximize a lot of their training initiatives that they have to overall elevate the execution of work. So the very first thing that home office teams see in the web application is actually what we call our heartbeat dashboard. Now the heartbeat dashboard is meant to be a high-level overview of overall how your organization is operating top down. And so you'll start to see a lot of the quantitative metrics your GMs have at their specific site level, but company-wide. I can see how many tasks are out there. Typically, organizations may be less concerned with the items due today or in the future, but it can be a real huge time saver if I can automatically identify things like overdue items and start to follow up with the people that are responsible for those tasks so we get them done. We also track things like week over week, month over month completion rates, so we can start to see how we're doing as an organization, and even tracking this very granularly at the particular project level. So I can understand are trends specific to one shift or one particular item that we're asking our teams to do, or is this just a general problem with the overall execution? And then very similar to the view that your field and teams, restaurant teams have on the mobile app, we want to give you a more holistic view around not just is the work getting done, but how well is it getting done. So we start to show the qualitative metrics like the frequently answered no on this heartbeat dashboard as well. So I as a VP of Ops, I as a COO, or even as a regional leader can start to understand for my teams where are our biggest deficiencies here. Do we have issues with cleanliness or particular food safety issues that we can start to address now? So all of this is meant to give operators a really great insight into their overall execution and maybe some key areas that they want to focus on in meetings and team and working with their teams. Now, a lot of this work that you've seen from the mobile application is driven by the web app. So this is the primary mechanism that brands or franchisees will actually use to assign all of their critical work out. And the main way we do that is through what we call project. So not only does projects allow you to really quickly, easily assign out work, whether it's one-off, things like a product recall, or these day-to-day items that I want done 4 or 5 times a day at particular times, but it also gives me great insight in real time as progress is happening out in the field. As my DMs, for example, start to complete their brand standards assessment, we're able to see that in real time and can even break this down via the hierarchy to understand, are particular regions performing better than others or particular stores, and actually view that information as it's flowing through. So I don't have to wait weeks to get reports from my DM or my field team. I can actually come in and see the actual work that's done the minute it's submitted through the mobile application. Now, for management teams, we want to not only give you visibility into the actual work it's done, but we also want to provide you with some metrics that can help, again, drive better compliance and make sure that we're not just getting the work done, but getting it done well. So we also provide what we call accountability metrics in the platform that track things like geolocation. Are they actually at the restaurant where they need to be when they're completing this audit? How long is it taking our teams to get a checklist or not it done? And so we're making sure not only is the work getting done, but of course it's getting done to the standards that we're setting as an organization. Now, getting able to see a lot of the individual submissions is a massive leap in visibility for most organizations, but it can get a little deep in the weeds. So we also want to give some higher level reporting to help you understand what this means for your business overall at scale. And that's really where our reporting comes in. By being able to leverage things like our form reports, where I can easily take a look at something like our brand standards audit and start to track generally over time how we're doing in terms of particular questions on the audit, overall scoring, and compare that period over period, month over month, year over year. It starts to really help us understand from a business perspective, how are we actually getting better or worse in key areas? And then what can we do about that to overall make improvements in the business? So by being able to track this at a very granular level, but across my organization, it gives me a great tool that I can then use from a coaching and training side of things. Additionally, we want to make it very easy to dive into certain issues. So form reports make it very easy to call out if we know we have issues with something like bathroom cleanliness and I need to dive in and understand, is this a problem that all of my restaurants are having? Is this a particular DM or district that's having this issue over and over again? By being able to easily drill down and identify certain issues, we're able to start to track that. So you can start to customize these reports and really dive down into the data that you need. And lastly, we'll provide also in these form reports a gallery view, which is going to be an aggregator of all of the photos that have been taken across a particular checklist or audit. And this really becomes the eyes and ears of the home office employees who may not get to visit the restaurants very often. So as a marketing leader, as an ops leader that's based in the home office, to be able to see across tens, hundreds, and thousands of locations with some sort of visual verification of things like promo rollouts or marketing execution, it can be extremely valuable as I'm just physically not able to be in all of the locations at once. So this is a great way to visually track execution and even start to give praise based on high execution or really easily identify if there's a particular issue, what location we need to follow up with on that. So one last critical piece, we've talked a lot about the work that gets assigned, how we track that, how we're able to leverage things like reporting to better understand over time how we're doing. And something that's come up, especially in today's environment, that is extra critical in conjunction oftentimes with the work that needs to get done is just general communication and announcements from the home office out to all of the teams that may be disparate in the field or spread out across multiple locations in multiple states and even multiple geographies at countries in certain cases. So one key element we want to also focus on is not just the work that's getting done, but also communication, particularly around a lot of the critical work that's out there. So our announcements capabilities allow home office teams, regional leaders to actually communicate in mass and in bulk really critical information that they need to blast out to specific users, specific territories, or just generally across the organization. If we're doing things like updates to new procedures based on local legislation, being able to actually send an announcement out and provide additional context here is incredibly valuable for brands today. And you're able to outline what that particular communication needs to be. In a lot of cases, you may be attaching things like photos or PDF documents to the announcements themselves to make it very simple and clear for your teams out in the field that are going to receive this work or receive this communication and understand exactly what needs to get done. So maybe it's a new procedure, or maybe it's something as simple as making sure that they have updated contact information for emergencies. Now, as you're about to send out communications, you're also able to track this in real time. So all of your teams out in the field will start to receive notifications that they have an announcement that they need to view. So as that DM or as that GM that we walked through earlier, I'm going to get live time communication from the home office with the updated emergency contact information. And then back at the home office, not only are you going to be able to blast that information out, but you're also going to be able to see in real time as stores or particular users start to open that information. You'll be able to track to make sure that everyone has read important documents or important assignment of announcements and make sure that everybody's up to speed. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude today's product tour. I hope everyone leaves today's session with a better understanding of how restaurant operators are actually leveraging Zenput within their own organizations to drive more agility into their operations, gain a lot better visibility into what's actually happening, and then of course saving their team members a ton of time in executing on really critical work. We really appreciate the time, and I hope this was helpful.